My name is Garrett, and this story takes place during my sophomore year in college. A year that started with chaos and ended in something I still can't explain without my chest tightening. After freshman year, I didn't get a spot in the dorms. Bureaucratic mix-ups, budget cuts, whatever the reason, the result was the same. No room and no time. I scoured bulletin boards, student forums, even Craigslist. I was down to the wire when I stumbled upon an ad for a co-op community, 3 old houses clustered together on the edge of town. The price was suspiciously low, but it was available immediately and within biking distance of campus. I didn't have the luxury to be picky. The place had charm, I won't lie. Tall ceilings, creaky hardwood floors, and the kind of history that gave every stair a story. But that charm faded the moment I stepped inside and was hit with a thick, musty odour, like something had been sitting too long in the dark. Still, the room was mine, and I was grateful. Most of the residents were students, artists, philosophy majors, a guy who swore he was starting a band. There were a couple of older residents, people who had stayed long after graduation for one reason or another. No one asked too many questions. Everyone seemed to mind their own business in a way that was almost rehearsed. But even in that eclectic mix, she stood out. I noticed her the first day I moved in. An older woman, mid to late 50s maybe, though her face looked older, weathered and pale, like she hadn't seen the sun in years. Her posture was crooked, and she walked with a limp that scraped with every step. Grey hair tied back with a fraying ribbon. She didn't smile, didn't speak, didn't introduce herself. She didn't live in my house. She lived in the one across the courtyard, but she appeared around ours often, drifting silently through the shared garden or standing on the back porch, watching. Always watching. People noticed, but no one said anything. Not really. I brought her up once lightly to my roommate Kai while we were unpacking. "Oh, her?" Kai said without looking up. "She's just part of the house?" "What's that supposed to mean?" Kai shrugged. "She's been here longer than most. Nobody really knows her story. Just don't bother her, and she won't bother you." That felt like a line someone had taught him. A rule passed down, unchallenged. The kind that forms in places that survive off unspoken agreements. It didn't sit right with me, but maybe I was just being paranoid, until the night I woke up and found her standing at the edge of the hallway, just outside my room, staring at my door like she was waiting for it to open. The first time I truly saw her was in the shared kitchen. Our house had one big kitchen. Old oven, mismatched cabinets, fridge that always smelled like garlic. The other 2 houses had their own, so it never made sense when someone from outside wandered in. But that night, she was there. She stood by the corner table while the rest of us cooked and laughed over a Spotify playlist echoing through someone's tinny Bluetooth speaker. She wasn't holding anything. She wasn't speaking. Just standing. Watching. No one acknowledged her. No glances, no greetings. It was like she was invisible. Except to me. We locked eyes. Twice. The first time was subtle. The second time, her stare lingered a moment too long. Her eyes were grey and distant, but there was something under the surface. Not curiosity, not hostility, recognition. She knew me, or she thought she did. The weight of her stare felt personal, intentional. I excused myself early that night. As I climbed the stairs to my room, I glanced down the hallway through the window that faced the road. She was there again. Not on the porch, not on the sidewalk. She was standing in the middle of the street under the orange flicker of a failing streetlight, head tilted up toward my window, motionless. The wind tugged at her skirt, but she didn't flinch. I didn't know why I did it, maybe to break the tension, but I raised my hand and waved. She didn't wave back. Instead, she bounced on her toes like a child trying not to scream in excitement, and then turned and ran back toward her house. That's when it sank in. She had been watching my window, not just glancing, watching. And now, she knew exactly which room was mine. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay still under my covers, waiting for a creak, a knock, anything that would justify the chill crawling across my spine. Nothing came. But the silence was worse. The next morning, I brought her up again. This time to someone older, Jesse, a senior who had lived in the co-op the longest. He sighed and looked over his coffee. "Look, man, some people say she's connected to the university. retired faculty or something. Others say she just never left after a psych eval that went bad. Whatever the truth is, she's been here a while and she hasn't hurt anyone. Just don't engage. But she's creepy as hell. Yeah, and creepy don't mean dangerous. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, not just with her, but with everyone else's acceptance of her presence. Like they knew something I didn't. Like they were used to the fear. That's when I started writing everything down. Dates, times, details, just in case. I didn't know yet that what I was preparing for wasn't just a mystery to solve. It was a nightmare waiting to unfold. The days that followed were a blur of anxiety, shadows, and whispered doubts. Every creak in the floorboards made me flinch. Every flickering light felt like a warning. I stopped leaving my curtains open. I started locking my door even when I was home. But it wasn't enough. One night, while brushing my teeth, I caught a flicker of movement in the hallway mirror. The door to the laundry room, usually closed, was slightly ajar. I hadn't heard it open. I hadn't seen anyone go in. I stepped closer. Through the gap, I could just barely see her silhouette, bent forward, hands trembling over the washing machine as if trying to figure out how it worked or how to open it. I stood there, frozen, toothbrush still in hand. She didn't turn around, but I knew she knew I was watching. And then, as if rehearsed, she whispered something. Not to me, not loudly, just out loud. Not this one. I backed away. That night, I dreamed of her. In the dream, she wasn't outside my door. She was inside my room, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside my bed, whispering to herself and tying knots in shoelaces. My shoelaces. Her mouth moved rapidly, but no sound came out. I couldn't scream. Couldn't move. I woke up drenched in sweat, heart hammering, with the faint smell of mothballs and damp wood lingering in the air. The next morning, I reached for my room key, my habit before heading to class, but it was gone. I tore the room apart. Desk, drawers, dirty laundry under the bed. Nothing. Everyone had a spare, sure, but losing it meant one thing. Someone else might have found it first. Someone like her. I asked around, pretending to be casual. Hey, you seen a key? Silver one, blue plastic ring. Most people shrugged. One guy said he might have seen something by the back entrance but didn't remember. I didn't believe him. I knew what losing that key meant. It meant the invisible boundary between me and her had been erased, and no one else seemed to care. That evening, I stayed locked in my room, door pushed shut with a desk chair jammed underneath the knob, just in case. I kept the light on, tried to study, failed. Around 2 a.m. I heard it. A soft bump, then another, rhythmic, gentle, coming from inside my closet. I froze. Every instinct screamed, don't look, just hide, pretend, wait until morning. But something stronger took over. Anger, fear, the need to reclaim my space. I stood up, approached slowly. The bump stopped the moment I reached the closet. Silence so thick it swallowed my breathing. Then I yanked it open. Nothing. Just clothes, a few books, a plastic tub of junk I hadn't unpacked. I slammed the door shut, furious. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe that dream had gotten to me more than I thought. But as I turned to crawl back into bed, I saw it. A single footprint on the inside of my closet door. Barefoot, small, and it was facing inward. I didn't sleep again after that night. I couldn't. I started leaving the light on, but even that brought no comfort. I began dragging my desk against the door each evening. I triple-checked the window locks, and yet nothing prepared me for what happened next. It was a Wednesday night when everything came undone. I had fallen into a restless nap around midnight, only to be jolted awake an hour later by a sharp metallic rattle, like a key turning in a lock. My eyes snapped open. The desk was still in place, the window still sealed, but the noise hadn't come from the door. It had come from the closet. For a moment, I thought my brain was playing tricks on me. I sat still, heart thudding in my throat. I stared at the closet door, half expecting it to open by itself. And then it did. It didn't swing open fully, just creaked wide enough for a figure to emerge. She stepped out, slow, careful, as if savouring the moment. She had one of my ties wrapped around her neck, like a scarf. Her left hand trembled, holding something metallic. Her right hand carried a kitchen knife. Her eyes were wide, not wild, intent. There was no scream. Not at first. Just me, frozen, breath caught somewhere between lungs and mouth. She whispered something like, "I fixed it," and lunged. That's when the scream tore out of me. The next few seconds are still a blur. I ducked instinctively, and her knife grazed my shoulder. I tackled her, the knife clattering to the ground. She clawed and bit and hissed like some cornered animal. I shouted for help, hoping someone, anyone, would hear. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. The door burst open. Lee, my housemate, dove in and helped pin her down. She kicked until the fight drained from her face twisted with something between rage and sorrow. The police arrived fast, too fast, like they'd been waiting for a call from this address. They found my missing key in her pocket. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that when the cops asked her name, she said something completely incomprehensible, then smiled. A cracked, broken smile. She never gave them a straight answer, but someone else did. A week later, the truth came out. She was the property manager's sister. She wasn't on the lease. She wasn't supposed to be there at all. He had let her live in one of the empty rooms under the radar to keep an eye on the place. She had untreated mental illness, severe episodes, and no medication. The manager? Arrested, charged with negligence. But me? I had to live with it. The memory of her breath on my skin. The image of her slowly stepping out of my closet. And the thought that maybe, just maybe, she'd done it before. And no one had survived to tell the story. The police took her away that night. And though the moment her footsteps faded down the stairs should have brought relief, it didn't. The silence that followed was worse. My housemates tried to comfort me. Someone handed me tea I didn't drink. Another offered to help clean up the blood drying on my arm. But all I could do was sit on the floor, staring at the closet door, now hanging half open, still swinging slightly from the chaos. Sleep never came. The next morning, the house buzzed with tension. Everyone acted normal. Too normal. Like it was easier to pretend we hadn't all just watched an uninvited resident crawl out of someone's closet with a knife. By noon, word had spread to the other two houses. People whispered in corners, doors slammed faster, eyes avoided mine. I had become the guy it happened to. The haunted one. Campus security called me in for a statement. Then, the university therapist. I sat in a sterile office filled with tissues and soft lighting, while a woman I had never met asked me how I felt. How did I feel? Violated, terrified, and worst of all, watched. Because even though she was gone, I still felt her. In the corners of my vision, in the creaks under the floor at night. Every time I blinked too slowly, I imagined opening my eyes to find her crouching beside my bed again. I asked if they'd changed the locks. They said yes. I asked if they'd cleaned out her room. They paused, then said they'd get around to it. The manager, the one who had let her live there in secret, was fired and arrested. They said he had meant well, that she was his sister, that she just needed a place to stay. No one mentioned that she'd almost killed someone. No one used the word attempted murder. They called it a psychological episode. A misfortune. That was the word used in the campus email. A misfortune. And yet, I stayed. I don't know why. Maybe out of pride. Maybe because I thought leaving would make me weak. Maybe because I thought it was over. But then things started happening again. The first time was subtle. I found a spoon in my drawer I didn't recognize. Not mine. Not one of the mismatched ones from the kitchen. I found a shoelace tied in a perfect bow on my doorknob. Neither of my shoes were missing one. Then came the noise. Soft taps. Slow, deliberate. Not from the closet this time. From the vent. I moved my bed. I checked inside. Empty. But the next night, I heard it again. Just 2 knocks. Then silence. I asked the new property manager about it. He looked uncomfortable. We sealed off the room she was staying in. Boarded it up. No one's used it since. Where is it? He hesitated. Technically, it shares a wall with your closet. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to, because I already knew. You can tell when a room is wrong. It's not the way it smells, or the way the floor creaks. It's the silence. The way it absorbs sound, like it's listening. Waiting. That's what the sealed room felt like. I convinced the new manager to show me. I lied, told him I needed closure. He brought a crowbar and flashlight, his hands trembling like mine. The door was hidden behind a large wardrobe in the hallway of House 2. Padlocked, boarded over. When he removed the planks, the air that escaped from the crack was cold, unnaturally cold, like it had been trapped in a freezer. He offered to go in first. I didn't stop him. The room was small, maybe 10 feet. No windows, just pale blue walls and old wood flooring stained a dark grey. There was no furniture except a broken chair and an old twin bed pushed into the corner. A pile of newspapers covered the floor like a makeshift rug. Some were from 2 years ago, some from 2 decades ago. There were drawings on the walls, crude sketches in crayon and pencil, some of houses, some of keys, some of me. My chest tightened. One picture showed a stick figure sleeping in a bed with another standing beside it, holding a knife. Beneath it, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "He left the door open." I turned away. The manager found something else in the closet. Another door, smaller, about 2 feet tall, nearly invisible against the wall, like a crawl space. He opened it. Inside was a tunnel, barely big enough for a person to crawl through. It snaked downward, into the darkness, framed by wooden beams and cobwebs. I wanted to walk away, I should have, but something pulled at me, a need to know, so I crouched and entered. It felt endless. The further I went, the colder it got. My flashlight flickered, once, twice. Then the beam caught something, scratches, along the walls, like fingernails dragged in panic. Symbols too, circles and eyes, some written over and over again. I kept crawling, then I heard it. Breathing, not mine. And then, a whisper, just one word, stretched across the tunnel like a scream behind glass. Garrett. The tunnel was tighter now. I could no longer lift my head. My elbows scraped against rough wood. Dust clogged my throat. And behind me, the exit had faded into shadow. But I kept going, because curiosity, dangerous, fatal curiosity, is sometimes stronger than fear. The whisper still echoed in my ears. My name, drawn out like a breath held for too long. Garrett! My flashlight flickered again, just once, but it was enough to make me freeze, because this time it wasn't a voice. It was a hand, fingers, reaching from the wall. No, through the wall, pale and thin, like bone wrapped in paper. They slipped back as quickly as they had appeared, vanishing into the cracks. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then I heard it. The closet door shutting. From the other end of the tunnel, someone had followed me in. No, something. My only choice was forward. The tunnel sloped downward. The air got colder, heavier. And then, just when I thought I couldn't crawl another inch, the space opened up. I found myself in a small underground chamber. It wasn't part of any floor plan. No one would have known it existed unless they were looking for it, or built it. The room was circular, like a root cellar. The floor was packed dirt. Along the walls were dozens, maybe hundreds of little items. Hairpins, buttons, crumpled receipts, toothbrushes, shoelaces. Things people don't notice when they go missing. At the center was an old mattress, filthy, sunken, covered in scribbles written directly into the fabric. My flashlight passed over one of the messages. The walls have ears. Another read. They won't believe you. And then, the one that made my blood run cold. You're next. I spun around. She was standing at the edge of the chamber. Not moving, not blinking. Her hair hung wet, like she had crawled through something damp. Her hands were raw. She looked younger, less broken, more aware. You weren't supposed to find this, she said softly. I didn't want to, I whispered. She smiled. But you did. And then she laughed. It was a sound that didn't belong underground. It bounced off the dirt walls and echoed like a nursery rhyme sung off key. I turned to run, but the tunnel was gone. Only solid wall remained. Trapped. That was the only word for it. I pressed my hands against the wall where the tunnel had been, scraping until my fingertips bled. Nothing. Not a crack. Not even an outline. Behind me, her footsteps circled the chamber. Soft, deliberate. She didn't speak again, just hummed. A lullaby, maybe. One I didn't recognize. It didn't belong to any place or time I knew. I spun to face her. Why me? I asked. She tilted her head. It's always you. This time, next time, every time. What the hell does that mean? But she just kept humming. Then she knelt by the mattress and ran her hands across the writings. They're all still here, you know. You just can't see them. See who? She didn't answer. My flashlight flickered and died. The chamber plunged into black. Then, a whisper. Not hers. Voices, dozens of them, all around me, layered on top of each other. Male, female, young, old, pleading, sobbing, screaming. They spoke my name. Garrett! Garrett! Garrett, help! One voice cut through the noise. Don't trust her. Another, she wears their faces. Another, she's not alone. I dropped to my knees, covering my ears. The sound didn't stop. It only got louder, inside my skull, inside my teeth, like it was inside me. And then, light, not from my flashlight, but from above. A panel in the ceiling opened. Harsh white light spilled into the chamber. Silhouetted in it was a man, older, disheveled, holding a crowbar. Kid, he shouted, grab my hand. It was the new property manager. Without thinking, I ran, leapt, grabbed his wrist. He yanked me out like I weighed nothing. We tumbled into a utility room I didn't recognize. Dusty, lined with old electrical panels. I gasped for breath. He shut the panel behind me and locked it. What the hell was that? I choked out. He didn't look at me. Instead, he whispered. I told him this house was too far gone. He never listened. Who? He finally looked at me. The original manager, my brother. I froze. He brought her here, the man continued. But she wasn't the first. She just stayed the longest. Stayed the longest? His face twisted with guilt. Garrett! I think she was the house. I didn't speak for a long time after he said it. She was the house. What did that mean? The new manager, Derek, I finally learned his name, guided me into a dusty hallway behind the utility room. The kind you'd only find on the blueprint, hidden behind false walls and ancient pipes. She wasn't just squatting, he continued, voice low. She belonged here, long before the co-op, before the university bought it, before it even had a zip code. We moved past rusted breaker boxes and twisted copper wire. The air was thick with mold, the kind that sticks to your lungs. I thought she was his sister, I muttered. Derek shook his head. That was just the story my brother told. I believed him, until I saw her walk through a door that hadn't been opened in 30 years. Until I found that room. He stopped in front of another panel, hesitated, then opened it slowly. Inside was a shelf. On it, a ledger. Old, leather-bound and water-damaged. He flipped through pages filled with names, and one name written repeatedly, E.M. Thorne. She signed in here every year, Derek said. Even before digital systems, even before my brother ran the place. Always the same name, always a different face. She changed? He nodded. Some people said she was a ghost. Others said she was a squatter. But me? He met my eyes. I think the house feeds off her. Or maybe she feeds off it. Either way, they're linked. And once she knows you... He didn't finish. But I already knew. The voices, the dreams, the tunnel. I had been marked. I asked what E.M. Thorne stood for. He shrugged. No one knows. The first record was dated 1923. She applied to be a live-in caretaker for the original hotel that stood here. That's where all this started. A hotel, not a co-op, not a student house. A place where people came in and never left. I turned to him. Then why hasn't anyone shut this place down? He sighed. Because the house won't let them. That night, I didn't return to my room. I couldn't. Derek offered a cot in his office. I didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling tiles and wondered which part of the house was watching. Because that's what it felt like now. Not haunted, aware. Like every crack in the wall, every warped floorboard, every rusted pipe carried a heartbeat that wasn't mine. The next morning, I made a decision. I needed to go back into that room, the one behind my closet. Not through the tunnel, not through hidden doors. Through the wall, Derek protested. There are things in there that don't want to be remembered. Then why do they keep showing themselves? He didn't have an answer, so I did it alone. Back in my room, I moved the dresser, pulled up the wallpaper, and found the faint outline of the plaster patch. I took a hammer and chisel and worked slowly, carefully, until the wall cracked open. Dust poured out, the air was frigid, and behind it, an empty dark space. I crawled in. The room hadn't changed. Same drawings, same mattress, but something new sat in the center. A mirror. Not a full-length one. Just a small vanity mirror, cracked down the center. And when I looked into it, I didn't see myself. I saw her, but not the version who attacked me. Not the blank-eyed figure from the hallway. This version smiled. And behind her, in the mirror's reflection, were others. Shadowed, twisted, hundreds of them, pressed up behind her like they were trying to push through the glass. Then she leaned forward and mouthed something. I leaned closer. Her voice whispered in my mind. You left the door open again. The mirror shattered. I stumbled back. Blood trickled from my cheek. I turned to crawl out. But the wall was sealed. The way I came in, gone. And then I heard it again, knocking. Not from behind me, from inside the walls. And this time, it wasn't just one knock. It was hundreds. I screamed, not out of fear, but out of desperation. The kind that comes when you realize the world no longer plays by your rules. When walls shift and space lies. I pounded on where the exit had been. Nothing gave. My fists bled. My voice cracked. The room was darker now. The only light came from a strange glow, pulsing faintly from under the mattress. I didn't want to look, but I did. Lifting the corner, I found not springs or fabric, but a hatch, an iron ring embedded in rotting wood. I pulled. It groaned like a dying animal. The smell hit me first. Earth, rot, something older than mildew or mold. Then the stairs appeared, narrow, spiraling downward into black. I had no choice. Each step moaned under my weight. I counted 23 before I hit dirt. A chamber opened before me, lit by nothing, but visible nonetheless. The walls glowed faintly, like lichen under moonlight, and in the center stood a figure, not the woman. A child, a girl in a white dress, hair over her face, standing before an altar made of bones and broken furniture. She didn't look at me. She just whispered, "She doesn't live here. She is here." I stepped forward. "What do you mean?" She pointed at the altar. I looked closer. Scrawled across the wood, M. Thorne, 1923. Then M. Thorne, 1947. And again M. Thorne, 1976. Every 20 years. Each time the same name. Different face. The girl finally lifted her head. It was me. My face. "On a child. You're next," she said. "She's chosen you. She needs a new body. The house is hungry." And then she screamed, not with her voice, but mine. The ground shattered. The wall screamed, and the woman returned. Only now, she wasn't limping. She wasn't frail. She wasn't human. Her eyes were pits. Her mouth stretched far too wide. She reached toward me, whispering like wind through dead leaves. "Come home." They say fire cleanses all, but it also awakens things best left buried. I don't know how I did it. Maybe adrenaline, maybe desperation. But I ran. Up the steps, through the room that used to be my closet, past the shattered mirror, the crushed tunnel. The walls bled shadows, reaching for me. I didn't stop. I burst into the hallway like a ghost from the past, screaming. Derek saw me and didn't ask questions. He just followed as I dragged a can of gasoline from the maintenance closet. "We have to end it," I said. "The house, her, all of it." He hesitated. "We'll go to jail." "She doesn't die, Derek. She transfers. You want this to happen again." He looked at the walls and nodded. We soaked the floorboards, the basement, the secret rooms, the mattress, every drawing, every inch of history. Then we stood at the entrance and dropped the match. The fire caught fast. It roared with a sound like breathing, like the house itself was screaming. Windows shattered, smoke curled like fingers. And as we backed away, I swear I saw her in the flames, smiling. Not in pain, but in defiance, as if to say, you cannot kill a house that remembers. It burned for 6 hours. When the fire department finally arrived, it was already ash. They called it a gas line fault. No one argued. The co-op was closed permanently, bulldozed within weeks. I graduated that spring. Moved cities, changed numbers, tried to forget. But sometimes, when the night is too quiet and the air too still, I swear I hear her humming. Sometimes I wake up with drawings on my wall, shoelaces tied in perfect bows. And once, just once, I found a note under my pillow, written in old shaky handwriting. "You left the door open again.